She was arrested on the street, accused of a robbery she didn't commit. Two white officers planted evidence, unaware the black woman they targeted was a federal prosecutor. What she revealed in court will shock everyone. But let's start from the beginning. Late one evening, Monica Lawson, a 32-year-old black woman dressed in a tailored navy suit and heels, walked briskly through downtown Chicago. The cool night air was a welcome reprieve after another grueling day as a federal prosecutor. Monica was well known in the legal world for her sharp intellect, unwavering commitment to justice, and no-nonsense approach in the courtroom. Her presence commanded respect, and she carried herself with the confidence of someone who had earned every inch of her success. As she passed a row of darkened storefronts, the silence of the evening was shattered by the sudden blare of a police siren. Two white officers, Blake and Carson, approached her with stern expressions. Startled but composed, Monica stopped, raising an eyebrow. "Is there a problem, officers?" she asked, her tone steady. The officers claimed she matched the description of someone involved in suspicious activity near a jewelry store earlier that evening. Monica frowned, but remained calm. "I'm a federal prosecutor," she stated, pulling out her ID to prove her identity. "I've just come from work." Her explanation didn't seem to faze the officers. Blake insisted on searching her belongings, his tone sharp and accusatory. Monica, aware of her rights, refused. "Without probable cause or a warrant, you have no right to search me," she said firmly, standing her ground. Carson's expression darkened. "Resisting, huh?" he muttered, before grabbing her arm. Before she could protest further, she was handcuffed and accused of attempting to burglarize the jewelry store. The humiliation of being arrested on baseless charges burned in Monica's chest as they led her to the patrol car. At the precinct, she requested a lawyer, but her demand was met with delay and indifference. Minutes turned into hours as her stoic demeanor gave way to suspicion. The situation took a sinister turn when Blake triumphantly produced a bracelet, claiming it was stolen and found in her purse. Monica's breath caught. She knew the item had been planted. For the first time in her career, she found herself trapped in the very system she fought to hold accountable. Sitting on the cold, hard bench of her holding cell, Monica Lawson's mind spun with disbelief and fury. She had spent years prosecuting criminals, striving to ensure the justice system worked fairly, only to find herself ensnared by its corruption. The sound of distant footsteps and muted conversations echoed through the sterile precinct, a stark reminder of her current reality. Her requests to contact her legal team were met with dismissive shrugs and deliberate delays, fueling her growing suspicion that this was more than a routine arrest. Elsewhere in Chicago, Monica's family was in turmoil after learning of her arrest from a breaking news report. Her brother, Jamal, a tech entrepreneur with a knack for uncovering digital breadcrumbs, sprang into action. From his small apartment, he began combing through footage from nearby security cameras, looking for anything that could prove Monica's innocence. Their mother, Gloria, a retired teacher with an indomitable spirit, made calls to Monica's colleagues, rallying support and demanding answers. By morning, Monica was led into a crowded courtroom, her head held high despite the ordeal. Cameras flashed as reporters eagerly covered the high-profile case. Standing in her perfectly pressed navy suit, Monica listened as the prosecutor recited the fabricated charges. The police alleged they had acted on a tip about a black woman in professional attire planning to rob a jewelry store, and they presented the stolen bracelet as evidence. Monica's voice was clear and unwavering as she refuted the claims, stating that the bracelet had been planted and accusing the officers of falsifying the case. Her words struck a chord with those in the gallery, many of whom were already skeptical of the police's story. Despite her compelling defense, the judge, visibly tense under the scrutiny of law enforcement, denied Monica bail. Back at her office, her colleagues dug into the backgrounds of Officers Blake and Carson, uncovering a troubling history of racial profiling and misconduct. The more they uncovered, the clearer it became that this case wasn't just about Monica. It was about exposing systemic corruption in the very institutions meant to uphold justice. The tension in the packed courtroom was palpable as Monica Lawson stood tall behind the defense table, representing herself during the pre-trial hearing. The room buzzed with anticipation, journalists scribbling furiously, and spectators leaning forward, eager to catch every word. Monica, clad in an impeccably tailored suit, exuded confidence despite the enormous pressure. This was her arena, and she intended to use every ounce of her legal expertise to dismantle the case against her. When called to cross-examine Officers Blake and Carson, Monica's tone was calm, yet cutting. She began by dissecting their reports, pointing out glaring inconsistencies in their timeline of events. Her voice remained steady as she methodically presented surveillance footage obtained by her brother Jamal. The footage clearly showed Monica leaving her office and walking directly to the spot where she was stopped, with no detours or suspicious behavior. The courtroom murmured in response, and the officers shifted uneasily in their seats. Monica wasn't finished. She turned her attention to the bracelet that had been discovered in her purse, dramatically revealing that it matched items reported missing in other cases involving the same officers. She then produced subpoenas for internal records, exposing a history of complaints filed against Blake and Carson for racial profiling and evidence tampering. The weight of her revelations hung heavy in the room. Officer Carson was next on the stand, and Monica's questions cut straight to the heart of the matter. "Officer Carson," she asked, her voice razor-sharp, "isn't it true that you planted that bracelet in my purse?" Carson hesitated, his face reddening as the room went silent. The defense attorney, a colleague from Monica's federal office, pressed further. "Did you falsify evidence under pressure from your partner?" A bead of sweat rolled down Carson's forehead as he stammered, his voice barely audible. "Yes," he admitted, his gaze dropping to the floor. Gasps erupted from the spectators, and the judge's gavel thundered, calling for order. The admission sent shockwaves through the courtroom. Monica stood resolute, knowing this moment was not just her victory, but a strike against systemic corruption. With Officer Carson's bombshell confession and the damning evidence Monica had meticulously gathered, the prosecution's case unraveled before the judge's eyes. The atmosphere in the courtroom was electric, the tension breaking as the judge slammed the gavel and dismissed all charges against Monica Lawson. His voice carried a tone of gravitas as he ordered an immediate investigation into Officers Blake and Carson, their actions deemed a gross abuse of power. The room erupted in applause, a mix of relief and admiration flooding the spectators. Monica, standing tall with her head held high, allowed herself a small, triumphant smile. The applause was not just for her vindication, but for her unshakable determination to face the very system she had once trusted to uphold justice. Far from resting on her laurels, Monica's focus shifted to a broader battle. Armed with her legal expertise and newfound public platform, she spearheaded a comprehensive investigation into systemic corruption within the police department. The inquiry exposed years of unchecked misconduct, from falsified evidence to racially motivated arrests. Officers Blake and Carson were swiftly suspended, their actions becoming a case study in the consequences of corruption. Monica also filed a civil suit against the department, demanding accountability and reform. Her victory was not just about personal justice. It became a rallying cry for systemic change. News of her case spread far and wide, sparking conversations about police accountability and inspiring others to challenge abuses of power. In the months that followed, Monica's name became synonymous with resilience and justice. As a federal prosecutor, her focus shifted toward tackling systemic injustices, using her platform to advocate for marginalized communities. She worked tirelessly to expose practices that disproportionately harmed Black and minority individuals, pushing for legislative changes and increased oversight of law enforcement agencies. Her courage resonated beyond the courtroom, inspiring a movement that demanded truth and transparency. Monica's story proved that even in the darkest moments, standing up for what is right could ignite change. For Chicago and for the justice system, her fight became a beacon of hope, a reminder that no one is above accountability.